This is the second session. And the first speaker is Dato Azman, Shah, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Northport, Berhad, the oldest port terminal in Port Kelang. May I call upon you?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you, and very good still morning to all of you. First and foremost, I would like to thank Tan Sri Makayo and KSI for giving me this opportunity to be part of a very esteemed conference. Of course, shipping, ports and logistics is a subject matter that is very dear to my heart. I've been involved in ports for the last 10 years, 4 years as the CEO of a company that used to be listed, and it was handling coal for 4 years. I was there, coal for the power plant in Lumut. And of course, as part of my greenification, basically, I have moved to Port Kelang to handle cleaner cargo. And here I am, 6 years later at Northport. So what I'll do basically is to go through the slides, introduce to you about Northport, because most people only know Port Kelang and Westport, but they don't know about the senior port, the older port. And we also will touch about port development, how important that is in the national agenda for economic growth. There are some future trends, challenges, and opportunities that I think people need to be aware of. And of course, strategies for Malaysian logistics companies. At the end of the day, what my conclusion will be, I'll jump my conclusion basically, and say that there's never been a better time to be in logistics, especially because of the challenges and also because of the opportunities. And if you have the right strategies, I think not only will your company benefit, but also the economy in general. Yeah. So just an introduction to Northport. I'll start off with a map of Port Kelang. There are 3 ports that make up Port Kelang. Port Kelang, as you know, is the 12th busiest container terminal in the world, and second largest only to Singapore in ASEAN. Yeah. And it started as Port Swettenham in 1901 and later named as South Point. And in 1963, basically the government decided to build a container terminal, well, to build a new terminal, which later became a container terminal. So that was Kelang Container Terminal, 1963. Yeah, and then it subsequently was renamed as Northport. Different shades of blue basically marks different operator, different privatization company, and that both South Point and Northport are basically under my jurisdiction. The different shade of blue to the south is Westport, which was built in the 1990s. It is basically 3 times bigger than us, and basically is also handling a similar cargo, but they have a capacity to handle larger ships, especially for the US and Europe trade lines. Yeah. So when we say Port Kelang, it is basically reflective of the combination of 3 different ports, but the 2 ports basically are managed by different owners or operators. But on paper, basically, we should be competitors, but we are basically friendly competitors. Our biggest threat is obviously this little island down south. Yeah, and for the last couple of years, basically, there has been an idea mooted for a 3rd port in Port Kelang, which is what we call Carry Island Port and Special Economic Zone. The project is still being discussed at the cabinet level, but this is actually a project that we look forward to, because it will complete Port Kelang's transformation to a viable alternative to Singapore. As you are probably aware, Northport, some of you are aware, that Northport's capacity is between 5 to 6 million TEUs. whereas Westports, even with their Westports 2 expansion, will move from 14 million TEUs to about 28 million TEUs, whereas Singapore's Tuas Port will be 65 million TEUs. So there's still a big gap for us to be actually a viable competitor to Singapore. So I'm just putting this up so that you are aware of the geographics, basically, different colors, different shades of blue, nothing political in there, right? Okay, and this is the history. Port Swettenham was first under the railway care, and in 1963, the Port Authority was established. They are our regulators. They used to run the ports, but then under the privatization in 1986, Kelang Container Terminal was established. Was privatized. It was the first pink form, if you recall, those days. And in 1992, the second half of the privatization happened, which is the Kelang Port Management Terminal. In the year 2000, there was a restructuring by the then shareholder, which is PNB, and the two terminals were merged into one, and the company, the entity was called Northport Malaysia Berhad, under the listing of NCB Holdings Berhad. Of course, in 2016, it stopped being a GLC. It was taken over by the MMC Group under Tan Sri Sai Mohd, and I came along with the package, and we have been busy transforming Northport from a GLC into a private company as part of a bigger entity, which is the MMC Ports Group. Yeah. Okay, this is what we've been up to for the last 6 years. We've transformed the company, we've improved our operations in terms of safety, occupational safety and health, productivity, and so on and so forth. Just came back from the Malaysian Maritime Week opening ceremony. They used to have a Best Sports Award, basically. We won in 2016 and 2017. And of course, we've been also accredited with ISO 45001 for occupational safety and health, and also ISO 37001 in terms of anti-bribery management system. So basically, we've been cleaning up our act, yeah, so to speak, and we have now found our niche, our equilibrium, which I will share with you later. But we are part of a bigger family. MMC Ports comprises of 5 ports. It is Malaysia's largest port operator, where we have PTP, Port of Tanjung Pelepas, Johor Port, Penang Port, ourselves, and Tanjung Beruas Port in Melaka. Okay. Now, this is quite interesting. Not many people know about this, but in terms of local port operators, MMC Ports is the biggest. We basically now have 58% of container capacity. If we were ranked in the world, which we are not, we would be, just purely on numbers alone, we'd be the 8th largest port operator in the world. It's just that we cannot be ranked because we don't have overseas, operations. Yeah, but that's how big we are. And we also do have haulage, rail cargo joint venture, and we also run Senai Airport. So effectively, we can do railroad, sea, air value proposition for transports and logistics. Right? So port development. Everybody wants to build a port. We have heard about one belt, one road. Unfortunately, in Malaysia, everybody, there's one state, one port kind of thinking right now. But let me just put things in perspective. I think basically you can't build a port where you have a monsoon drain in front of you. You will have to spend a lot of money, basically. So the right location, the right circumstances, the right environment needs to be there for any major port to be built. And I think we've done enough studies, World Bank and the Malaysian government, to know where the right ports should be and what should be there, basically. Just to put things in perspective, I don't want to go back into history because most people won't remember those books, but the latest one is by these 3 gentlemen called, I can't pronounce the names probably, Paulis Rodriguez and Notabum. The Port Economics Management Policy book recently launched, and they basically said, and this is really very clear cut, development of ports is the key to the expansion of trade and economic development. You've got the direct multiplier, which is the port services and the transport services. You have the indirect, which is basically the port users, the importers, the exporters, and everything in between. You also have the induced multipliers, the people servicing those industries that I mentioned just now, and the economic opportunities that arise from the existence of the port. So in a nutshell, basically, if you ask me what is the multiplier effect for the port and the logistics business, is something that I think I've been making noise about, but nobody has really stepped up and done a proper study. But just to give you an understanding of how much people rely on ports, basically, Northport being 1/3 the size of Westport's, I actually have 22,000 port passes in issue right now, people who come to the port. So imagine those who don't come to the port, the freight forwarders, the warehouse operators, the depot operators, and so on and so forth. And you imagine the number of people who actually have their livelihoods dictated by the fortunes of the port. So port development is obviously very, very important. As you can see, the impact is tremendous. There's enough action in the stock market or the capital markets. Whilst MMC has just been delisted a couple of months ago, but we have successfully issued or in the process of issuing Sukuks, and it's AA rated. And our sister company, PTP, has announced that they're going to expand and spend another 750 million ringgit to expand their berth. Kuantan has also announced that they're going to expand. Our next door neighbor, Westport, is in the middle of negotiating their concession for Westport 2. And the things that basically supporting the port, the customers of the port. You got Jingyi in Malacca. You got IKEA, as you probably remembered 4 years ago, they were looking for 150 acres of land for the regional distribution hub. They found some land in Pulau Indah and they're operating there. And of course, in PTP, we have, in Johor, basically, we have Volkswagen, we have BMW, and very soon Mercedes. So all these companies are looking at Malaysia, looking at the ports and saying, I want to be here. So there will be a positive spin to the economy. But we cannot rest on our laurels because basically the competition is there. Singapore, as you know, live and breathe ports and airports. And they are basically the biggest group in the world, PSA. And of course, you've got Thailand looking at their Liam Chabang. And of course, for centuries, they've been talking about the Kra Canal. We'll continue talking for a few more centuries, I guess. But the land bridge might be a reality, between both sides of the Thai, peninsula. And of course, Indonesia has also some interesting plans in terms of ports and expansion and so on and so forth. However, I think what needs to be made very, very clear is that a port by itself is not going to do anybody any good. You have to have a port that comes with a hinterland and a multimodal connectivity. The reason why Northport to South Point and Northport has been around for more than 121 years is because of the location, because of the connectivity. We have a rail line coming into the port, similarly with Westports. We have been able to service the importers and the exporters. And of course, with the location, with the shipping lines that we are servicing, basically, we can actually hold a candle in the world in terms of international transshipment. But you need to have the hinterland support. You need to have the warehouses. You need to have the regional distribution hubs. You need to have the service providers. You need to have people who are creating the cargo for you to export and import. So this basically, in a nutshell, shows how attractive Port Kelang is, because just 100 meters outside of the gates of Northport, you can actually enter or be connected to 7 major expressways in the country and all the industrial parks that lie in between. So this is very, very key. Carry Island, everybody says, why do we need another one? I said, if it was just a Carry Island port, I wouldn't be interested. But what I'm looking at is basically the special economic zone that lies behind it. Because we've seen so many examples, Dubai and the Jebel Ali Free Trade Zone. We've seen Shenzhen grow. We've seen, go back a few years in time, you have Hamburg and Rotterdam as well. Okay, so future trends, challenges, and opportunities. Sorry, how do I go back? Okay. Animation. Not very good. idea to have animation when you are 1 minute behind time. Future trends, okay. Automation, I think this is the best time to invest in CAPEX because basically manpower is really, really short. Digitization, this is actually one of the very few positives from the COVID-19 because nobody dares to touch paper, right? So it's a very good excuse to do digitization, and we have actually done that. We heard just now questions about environment, sustainability, so on and so forth. ESG is actually the next trend that we all populace are looking at. And there are now a good enough excuse for ports to go into warehousing and so on and so forth, because ports are acting as regional distribution centers for MNCs. With all the port closures in the rest of the world, people are now talking no longer just in time, but actually just in case. So they are looking at regional outposts for them to actually store their products so that in any case, in the event that other ports are closed, you still have an outpost that can actually distribute your products. Right? In terms of challenges, the high investment cost that goes with managing a port, learning new sets of skills. I think as we move from labor intensive to mechanization and automation, I think there's a lot of new skills to be learned. The current existing global supply chain where there's a lot of trade imbalance and high freight costs, basically, these are the challenges that people will face. And equipment and trade imbalance, I think everybody wants to be running the Pacific route and not so much the Asian route because the rates are so much higher. Opportunities though, we can look at attracting MNCs to invest in Malaysia. I think Singapore has decided that their warehouses, their distribution is more for the high-tech operations. So all those warehouses, regional distribution hubs that are not within their scope or their preferred scope is something that we can actually chase after and bring to Malaysia. Increased demand for modern warehousing. Every time I go to Singapore, I've been looking at their vertical warehouses, their automated warehouses. I think this is something that we can actually easily transpose to Malaysia. And higher productivity and efficiency culture, that's what I've been doing for the last 6 years in Northport. And supply chain integration. You will see, I think I got it in this slide, strategies for Malaysian companies, where you have the stock market darlings, Tasco, Swift Haulage, and the guy who listed in Hong Kong and wants to list in Malaysia, Infinity. Basically, they've moved up and down in terms of vertical integration. And I'm quite pleased with their efforts because basically this will create opportunities and market growth. And of course, to be resilient, I think Port Kelang, to our credit, basically, we've not closed a single day during the pandemic. Other ports like Ningbo, third largest in the world, one positive case, and they closed for 14 days. We did not have that. We were ready, we were open, and basically we were ready to serve. So Port Kelang recorded the highest ever numbers last year, in spite of the pandemic. And there was also a study to show that we were the most efficient amongst 22 major ports in the world, with a turnaround time for each vessel of 1.7 days. So that's something that maybe people know, but it is something that we should be all proud of. And the reason why I'm showing this, because getting the right strategy and being in the right place in the right time is very, very important. So we embark on a journey to make ourselves safer, greener, smarter, and better. So we, like I said, we did digitization. We were the first port in the country to use drones for surveillance. First port in the country to get ISO 45001. We've gone through 8 different editions of COVID-19 business continuity plan. We've been green all this while, electrified rubber tire gantry. We're the first warehouse to have solar panels on it. And I mentioned all those things. And just to wrap up, basically, all those hard work for the last 6 years ended up with us breaking records in 2021. Unheard of. I think if somebody told me a year ago that will be talking about this, I think I'll say that you guys are mad. But alhamdulillah, praise to God, basically this is what happened. Our container throughput was the highest ever at 3.32 million. And our conventional throughput was probably the second highest ever. And we actually recorded our highest monthly throughput in the month of May. It's the best ever financial performance in terms of revenue, EBITDA, and also PAT. And to just talk about the new approach with regards to our friendly competitor, we actually went into a 50-50 joint venture to help rescue Bastard Cruise Terminal. Yeah, so we took over the keys in September last year. It was also our best ever safety performance. Your cargo is safe with us. And just to amplify that, the Ministry of Transport gave us the Best Port Safety Management Award in 2021. So all this would not have happened if we did not go into that transformation that we did over the last 6 years. And we were there at the right time with the right capacity to actually take advantage or benefit from the global supply disruption, which is going to probably continue for the next 1 year. So last point to conclude basically is that it's actually the best time to be in logistics. It's challenging, it is difficult, but I think if we have the right strategies and if we have the right support from the government, the port and also logistics industry is actually going to be one that will carry the Malaysian economy to greater heights. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dato Azman. You are a well-known personality in the industry, and thank you for sharing your future plans with us. Our next speaker is Dr. Tieman. I think he's going to be on the Zoom, is it? Yeah. So he is the Chief Executive Officer of LLB International, a supply chain strategy consultancy and research firm. He's an advisor to businesses and governments in Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. So let's look at him. He's on the Zoom now. Here we go.
Thank you, Datuk Benjamin, Reynauld. I hope you can hear me well in the room.
Sure, we can hear you well. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you. Distinguished guests, fellow speakers, ladies, gentlemen, and friends, I would first of all like to thank KSI Strategic Institute for inviting me to speak at this esteemed summit. Thank you also, Tan Sri Michael Yiu, for organizing this event and your continuous contribution to the logistics industry in Malaysia. It's a great pleasure to be also together in the panel with Dato Azman, a good friend of mine, and I look forward for further discussions on this important topic. I'll just put my slides on. So the COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the global supply chain and has also increased transportation costs, and probably for good. I would like to present to you 3 topics in particular. The logistics industry megatrends for Malaysia, also the opportunities for Malaysia logistics companies, and thirdly, also strategies for Malaysian logistics service providers. So I have developed a matrix for you. On the vertical side, you will see high impact mega trends. So vertically high mega impact trends will show mega trends that are relevant for all industry-wide. Low impact mega trends are mega trends that are important for selected industries or for selected regions in Malaysia. On the horizontal axis, you will see those mega trends that are relevant for short, medium term within the coming 5 years. And further on the right, you see those mega trends that are long term. We talk about a time window of 5 to 10 years. So first of all, as also highlighted by Dato Azman, the COVID pandemic resulted in also supply chain disruption. Therefore, holding inventory is getting more important. Over the previous years, a lean philosophy was predominantly implemented by a lot of brand owners, resulting in removing inventories out of the supply chain. This has proven to be a very risky strategy where a lot of operations and distributions worldwide came to a halt. So I would say here that lean is out, and logistics can actually cost money nowadays. That is, I think, good news for the logistics industry. Also, what Dato Azman highlighted is that the importance of not depending on paper-based processes. Paper-based processes is a source of errors, communication errors and data errors that can have big implications for your logistics, where you do not have enough inventory or have very long supply chain lead times or long payment cycles. E-fulfillment has proven to be an extremely important area. During the COVID lockdown, people were ordering from home, both for the consumer, but also for businesses. A lot of the actual orders were transferred online. So the e-fulfillment business will be critical to be perfectionized for a lot of companies in the years to come. Also from global to regional supply chain. So the COVID pandemic resulted in supply chain disruptions. A lot of big companies are now re-looking at their supply chain. Instead of buying from the cheapest source on this planet Earth, even from Mexico, for Asia, those times are over. Companies are restructuring their supply chain to change from global supply chains to regional supply chains. Also, we have seen in extreme already a start of a big consolidation process that has been put in place. So Maersk, for example, at the largest shipping line, has been buying over logistics companies and is still not finished. So I also expect a further consolidation within the coming 10 years, also in Malaysia. As also highlighted by the Deputy Minister of Transport this morning, Malaysia is committed to the Paris Agreement to reduce greenhouse gas emission by at least 40% by the year 2030. This means in practice for the logistics industry, a decarbonization of freight transport. Big multinational producers are already removing the carbon out of their supply chain. At least they are planning for this. And of course, there is no better way to start this with the logistics industry, which they are not operating. So I expect the importance of the logistics industry to embrace electric vehicles, but also biofuels, and also this applies to the warehouses. And Northport is one of the examples that are already using solar for their warehouse roofs, leveraging for solar energy of Malaysia for the operations. Some low impact and long-term mega trends are the importance of the halal industries to be located in halal clusters. So Malaysia has about 20 halal industrial clusters over Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak. These will be important halal ecosystems for companies to operate in and to strengthen their halal integrity in their supply chain. What's also an important area is during this COVID that staff need to be tested all the time, and that was a lot of dropout of staff and even disruption in the logistics processes. So traditional warehouses in Malaysia have been people-based, which was a very risky affair with all the COVID tests and the high concentration of people in buildings. So the future of warehouses will be fully automated warehouses with as little as people as possible, automated, highly automated, and of course also sustainable, powered by solar energy. Finally, as low impact, long-term is on the freight forwarding. The future of freight forwarding is quite bleak from my perspective. Freight forwarding in Malaysia, thousands of companies active. I think in the coming 5 to 10 years, the freight forwarding business will be replaced by artificial intelligence, similar also like the booking for your holidays, which you do now yourself, and there's a limited role of the travel agencies. Finally, the low impact and short and medium term mega trends. From my point of view, halal logistics will become mandatory within the coming 5 years. Indonesia makes already by 2024 halal certification mandatory for the foods, but also the logistics of food in Indonesia by October 2024. I'm expecting that the Malaysian halal authorities, JAKIM, will follow in the Indonesian footsteps to make halal logistics mandatory. This will be covering also the seaport terminals, warehouse operation and transportation operation in Malaysia. Malaysia was also the first country to establish a halal supply chain standard, the MS 2024. Which has been updated in 2019. And this is not only a Malaysian standard, but this halal supply chain standard has also been used for the international standard, the OIC SMIC 17 standard, which was launched in the year 2020. As also highlighted by various speakers this morning, the Penang-Borneo highway is close to completion. So for this year already, the first phase for Sarawak, the first phase for entire Sabah and Sarawak will be completed by early 2024. This is a game changer for Sabah and Sarawak in terms of logistics operation. They were very dependent on water transport with long lead times. And for Sabah and Sarawak, this will be a big step in reducing supply chain lead times and logistics costs for industries in Sabah and Sarawak, and also a lower price for the consumer in Sabah and Sarawak. The Penang-Borneo highway is also interesting as Indonesia is moving their capital by the year 2024 to Kalimantan. The new capital will not be Jakarta, but it will be Nusantara. So these are also opportunities, big industry developments in Kalimantan, which are expected in the years to come, also provides opportunities for logistics in Sabah and Sarawak. Finally, logistics is back, city logistics is back on the agenda. The importance of e-commerce, e-fulfillment, and we do not want to have 20 deliveries in your street of e-commerce motorbikes every day. So we need to relook at how best to serve e-fulfillment in our big city. So I think city logistics, I'm expecting some nice projects in key regions in Malaysia, such as the Klang Valley, Johor, Penang, also in Kuching and KK. So these were some logistics industry mega trends I expect for the years to come. So what are the opportunities for the Malaysian logistics companies, the logistics service providers? Traditional, we have a big number of operators in traditional warehousing, trucking, and freight forwarding. This is a low margin business. You need to, best for the logistics industry to go to other quadrants. So you have to create specialized logistics services. It might be electrical road transport, a specialized service, halal logistics, regional distribution centers, cold room complexes. There are opportunities in that side for Malaysia. Also, ASEAN 3PL. So we have quite some big operators that are active in Malaysia, but very few of them also have operations in our neighboring countries, Indonesia and Thailand and Brunei. So I think there is room for Malaysian logistics players that also have operations, cross-border transport, as well as distribution services in our neighboring countries, Indonesia, Thailand, and Brunei. Finally, there are opportunities for supply chain orchestrators and even for supply chain optimizers, so the so-called 4PL and 5PL operators. Some logistics companies are now calling themselves already a 4PL operator, but technically 4PL operator, you need to be asset free. And what I still see a lot of fourth party logistics service providers are actually 3PL operators because they still have interest in their optimizing their own warehouse facilities and trucks. Finally, what are some important strategies for Malaysian logistics companies in the years to come? Number one, so first of all, as also highlighted by Dato Azman, is the digitalization of logistics processes are extremely important. Paper-based is not only a source of COVID transmissions, but also definitely a source of a lot of mistakes in operations, a source of redo of work, communication mistakes, logistics lead times at the end, logistics costs. Luckily, with the COVID situation, a lot of people have seen the importance of IT and are investing in IT. We have seen a big spree of taking over and mergers and acquisitions of logistics companies that will be extended. If you are a small player, it is important, if you don't want to be taken over, to work together with even your competitors in the industry. Collaboration with competitors is sometimes a dirty word in the Malaysian and also Asian context, but there are a lot of opportunities to create similar synergies as bigger corporations are getting. So I think it is important to seek working together with other logistics service providers in extending your logistics services for industries. Thirdly, risk management is getting important. I've been working for a lot of big brand owners over the past years. Risk management is top on their agenda. What we see, however, that a lot of logistics companies do not have proper risk management, crisis management handbooks. So this, I think, is something to address by Malaysian players to establish proper handbooks for issues, but also crisis management for their operations. Finally, I think the importance was highlighted by the Deputy Minister of Transport this morning, the commitment of Malaysia to move towards decarbonization of the logistics industry. So I think investments are important in solar and biofueled logistics operations for the years to come. So if you're an important logistics player, want to grow bigger in the Malaysian logistics industry, I think investments in solar and biofuel powered logistics will be important for the years to come. This was my presentation. Thank you very much. I would like to pass it back to Dato. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Marco, Chairman. You came out loud and clear, and you looked good on the Zoom.
Thank you.
We realize efficient ports attract shipping services and thus require more efficient logistics. Generous incentives by the government and open policies will definitely go a long way to support our operators to attract transshipment cargoes and large shipping lines. Of course, we have experts like Dr. Azman and yourself to advise us. I'm sure we'll go a long way, considering the fact from 2021 to 2020 is a bad year, with so much of disasters, so much of problems with pandemic and the climate change and that sort of thing. I'm glad that you talked about climate control, and also happy to note that renewable energy will be introduced in ports in Malaysia. That'll go a long way. Thank you so much again. Unfortunately, time has run out. There will be no questions from the floor. So we have to close this session. with grateful thanks to the eminent speakers, to all the participants who are here. It was a wonderful event, and the National Transport Summit 22 has been helpful. I'm sure all of you will agree with that. Thank you so much again.